There is a famous Jack Benny anecdote of many years ago. For our younger people here, Jack Benny was a comedian whose stage image was that of a miser. He was known for always thinking of money and how he wouldn't spend any and how he could put it into his vault underneath his house. And so in one radio skit, he was approached by a robber who said, "Your money or your life?" After a long pause, the thief repeats, "Your money or your life?" And Jack Benny finally replied, I'm thinking. It produced the longest audience laugh time in radio history. But beneath the humor, a serious spiritual disease was being portrayed, and that being greed. Today's gospel proclamation begins with someone in the crowd asking Jesus to intervene in a family inheritance conflict. And Jesus responds and goes on to make a very wise and important statement. Take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions. The man in the parable that follows this statement is not condemned because his barn was filled with grain or that he was rich. He is condemned because he had allowed his heart to be dominated by these riches and self-interest. It was so dominated, in fact, that when he was considering how to dispose of his abundance, it never occurred to him that he might share it with someone else. Listen to the words again carefully when he talks of the big harvest. And he says, "What shall I do? I don't have enough space. I will store my grain and say to myself, you have blessings for yourself for years to come. I will rest, eat, drink, and be merry." Notice in those words how he only thinks of himself. In this brief soliloquy, he uses the words I 6 times, me 3 times, and myself once. He's never thinking of anyone else around him. I remember several years ago hearing about an adult retreat program where the participants were asked to write their own obituary. This exercise was to help the retreatants to reflect on what was most important in their lives. It was to help them reflect on what they wanted to be remembered for. And I would suggest this. What would our obituary look like if we wrote it? What would we want people to remember about our individual lives? Would it be all about what we did? Would it be all about what we accumulated? Would it be about the important social clubs or activities that we might have belonged to in our lifetime? Now, what if your spouse or children or your closest friends were to write your obituary? Would they say how grateful they were for all you provided them with, but they wish you would have had more time to be just with them, to hang out, to chill? Would they talk about how you taught them religious values, gave good example through your language and actions about treating all people with respect and dignity? Would they talk about how you were generous in helping others? It would be a mistake to hear today's gospel and think that it is an attack on having wealth or being rich. It is directed at anyone, rich or poor, who might be bitten by the bug of greed. Happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. Accumulating things and possessions is the most foolish of all vices. Billy Graham once pointed out, you never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul trailer. No amount of possessions can make our lives on earth secure or full. We enrich ourselves not by grabbing all we can and to find in life, but by giving, as any fruit tree shows us. By all means, let us work to improve our lot for ourselves and our families. That's important. But let us heed Christ's words. Make yourself rich in the sight of God. Let this be our priority in hearing the gospel today. It is not what we carry in our wallets or purses or in our bank accounts that make us rich. It is what we carry in our hearts.